Hello everyone, this is part 33 of What If Naruto was in the 7 Ninja Swordsman, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist. To see more, comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Land of Fire. Ino looked at the vast feudal capital around her where the daimyo of her nation currently resided alongside majority of the noble lords that supported him. These leaders were responsible for supporting Konoha's existence and also bankrolling its never-ending wars against other nations. After what happened at the Cage Summit, where the greed of this nobility led to another needless war in which thousands of warriors were going to s. It is not humanity or their own nations that they seek to protect, but only their own power, homes, wealth and dynasties. She clenched her fist bitterly as she remembered Naruto's parting words to her before he went to war and as she arrived in the capital and watched the nobility living a life of senseless lavish while sending others to s in their war made her boil. For far too long, these feudal lords have controlled the fate of shinobi and the whole world. For the sake of our race's future, they must be eliminated. I started this revolution in the land of water, and spread it across the land of lightning, land of frost and land of hot water. But there are still a few feudal lords left, namely from the land of fire, wind, earth among the major ones alongside those of minor nations. Regardless of the outcome of this war, they must all be eliminated right down to their last bloodline. That is the sole purpose of the Cobra unit which I want you to lead. With most of the militaries focused upon me, the feudal lords will have less security to defend them. I already have some of my best units stationed across every target of importance along with their supporters from the nobility. I want you to lead the operation to eliminate the Land of Fire's daimyo personally, as he is the key to this entire corrupt system being the most powerful and influential political leader in the world. When the time comes, we shall bring the feudal system that has taken away our freedom crashing to its knees. This shall be humanity's coup against those that have taken our freedom to peace and prosperity. Ino had felt something awaken within her heart upon hearing the dream of the man she loved dearly. The fact that it was the greed of these same leaders that had made Naruto a wanted criminal in the world only sealed their fate in her eyes. She also understood as to why the feudal leadership across the world feared Naruto Namikaze and wanted him to be eliminated even at the cost of another world war that would probably cross all brutality in known history. For them, he was the devil who sought to destroy everything they had built for themselves and their future dynasties over the past several thousands of years. We are ready. She turned around in her room to find one of the Zetsu standing at attention and looking at her expectantly even as the moonlight shone upon her face. Then let's end this corrupt system, she declared resolutely. Land of Lightning. My dear warriors, it's time to come home. Mangetsu Hozuki watched the crushing effect of that order given by General Ape, the temporary leader of their nation, had on their entire army including members of the 7 Ninja Swordsmen. Even the veteran general looked heartbroken through the astral communication link as he gave that fateful order. This is not a war of our making. I cannot in good conscience risk the future of our nation or send any one of you to s in such a senseless conflict, explained General Ape. The general's right, men. We heard the former Mizukage gave you a visit and what transpired afterwards, but the fact is that you are the greatest army in the world in service to the greatest nation and not a single man, reminded the Anbu commander through the astral projection. Mangetsu saw sadness evident in majority of their army with only a rare few looking content with the decision. Another smaller and rebellious section looked outraged and voiced their protest quite openly but didn't get much support from their fellow comrades who remained silent. We are not the greatest nation or the greatest army in the world anymore. The Hozuki clan head's loud and clear declaration made the entire army stop its bickering and General Abe alongside the Anbu commander to look at the second Mizukage's son who stepped forward. We dreamed of it once and stood up for what was right against impossible odds, confessed Mangetsu sadly, as he remembered all the struggles and all the ones they had lost in the pursuit of that fateful dream including his own father, Genjutsu Hozuki. Haku and Amayuri's eyes teared up when they saw Mangetsu's own eyes become moist, a deep emotion that started spreading across the Kirigakure army. We waged war against feudal tyrants, not support or abstain from wars that continued their oppression at the cost of precious lives and the future of our children, said Mangetsu honestly. General Abe and the Anbu commander lowered the gaze as those words held a bitter truth which was harsh for them to accept. Mangetsu then looked at Zabuza and Kisame alongside many others who still looked unconvinced. Naruto the Great, our enemies and the shinobi world christened Lord forth as such for his military conquests and genius. But for me, he is the symbol of the dream which we all shared together. One for which my father s his life alongside thousands of our comrades, for which we undertook the Great March in the past. God knows I disagreed with Naruto on a few issues, hell I even didn't like him that much in the beginning, admitted Mangetsu with a chuckle, eliciting a similar response from Zabuza and Kisame alongside many in the army as they vividly remembered the friction between Mangetsu and Naruto in those early days. Even so, he inspired us all to be better. Not just for ourselves, but for our comrades, countrymen, our nation and even those not aligned with us. One of his greatest achievements in my eyes is the fact that he turned us from a barbaric and highly divided army into not just the strongest, but also a moral army to some extent. Something which very few of our adversaries can claim in this age of treachery. The reason I followed that man into hell and beyond is because he can see a future I can't even imagine. Jinpachi found himself agreeing with every word confessed by Mangetsu before everyone, and he saw many in the army alongside the leadership started feeling the same impact. For better or worse, Naruto became the family we chose for ourselves. After my father Naruto became everything to me. A father, brother, friend, and commander. He not only saved my life, but rescued me from darkness and supported me in marrying the woman I loved. No matter what happened or his real truth, I can never repay that debt, admitted Mangetsu, and saw Haku nodding at him with tears in her eyes. I'm sure many of you feel the same. He was satisfied when nobody disagreed with his opinion, for deep down they could not deny the truth of what Naruto Namikaze had done directly or indirectly in their lives, most of it good. It's true that there are a lot of unknowns and things Naruto could have been honest with us about from the beginning. But I feel he was trying to do his best to keep us safe. He still failed, but I cannot disregard his sincere intentions for us. I don't trust the other nations, for their promises and alliances are only for their own benefit. Sooner or later they will revert to treachery and violence. But I do trust the commander whom we have followed into battles many times, and one who brought every one of us home alive or and looked after our families as if they were his own. Haku joined her husband upon hearing his proclamation, even as a stunned silence enveloped the entire army and made General Abe gawk at the leader of the most powerful clan of Kirigakure. Naruto is fighting for a peace that includes all of humanity. I have thought about this a lot and can only think of one thing. As to what greater ambition can a human being have in life than to bring a real, lasting and permanent peace for all mankind? That's a cause worth fighting for and noble enough to for and risk everything we have built. Kisame and Zabuza alongside a few others in the army including General Abe felt something within their hardened hearts rekindle upon hearing that goal. The 7 ninja swordsmen saw Mangetsu looking directly at them with moist eyes, even as the rest of the army looked at their leaders and strongest fighters. Naruto is my friend. Zabuza couldn't help but remember the way Naruto had embraced him back into the group even after all the accusations he had laid against the Mizukage. Nor could he deny that voice within his heart. He is our brother. Haku, Amayuri, Jinpachi, Zabuza and even Kisame's eyes widened a little upon hearing Mangetsu's declaration, for nothing could change the fact that Naruto was one of the 7 ninja swordsmen, their cage and all the history and bonding they had shared. General Abe and the Anbu commander glanced across the army and saw hardly anyone who didn't look ready, not after what Mangetsu said to them all. Even veterans like them couldn't deny the voice within their hearts, and when General Abe looked at the Haori in his office that their former Mizukage had left as a gesture of respect, he felt courage flow through his heart. Mangetsu sensed the unspoken feeling surging through the entire army, the 7 ninja swordsmen and even General Abe alongside the Anbu commander. Let's accomplish the impossible for humanity's future and bring our brother home. Land of Earth. Kitsuki and his men had been taking some much-needed rest after a days-long march towards the enemy stronghold in Mountain's Graveyard region. It was still taking everything they had to work alongside ninjas and warriors from other nations. Most still didn't trust each other and were barely working towards a common goal of defeating their enemy. He doubted such alliances would last in the long run and the world would soon revert back to constant warfare of dominance. But he was a shinobi and that's what they were born for. If only he had realized his mistake sooner. For soon enough, their camp was attacked with such swiftness and ferocity that thousands of their allies were killed in the opening moments itself. Hundreds more were with a ruthless efficiency as they tried to gather their bearings. Kitsuki hadn't thought it was possible to ambush an army this large in size with decent fortifications around their camp, but their enemy had done just that with less numbers on their side. But what they lacked in numbers was certainly made up by their technology and the power of the Spartans from Azushiogakur. He had never faced them in battle before, but did remember they had thwarted Onoki and his group from aiding the fallen Kumogakur in the earlier war. Their exploits in the First Great Ninja War were also known to him to an extent. But nothing could do justice to their true power and ferocity, which Kitsuki and his men faced in its entirety now as they tried to defend the main gate of their camp. Earth-style, rock bullets. Kitsuki and his men launched hundreds upon hundreds of rock bullets at lightning speed towards their advancing enemies and saw the leading female Spartan officer signal her fellow comrades. "Shield the Zetsus," roared Kushina defiantly. In the blink of an eye she created a massive red-colored barrier that protected majority of the Zetsu force behind her even as 24 Spartans formed the vanguard around her and continued advancing. Kitsuki's and his men tried more attacks but were all repulsed by the shielding provided by the armor that the Spartans were wearing. All the while their enemies continued launching hundreds of kunai projectiles from their mechanized weapons that took down the entire frontal line of the coalition defense. Charge! Kushina's walkry bolstered the resolve of the ones following her as she threw a dozen explosive tags to shred many more enemies, and true to her training, she was the first to lead the assault, making Kitsuki abandon his own caution and run forward to answer her challenge. For humanity, the Spartans leapt into the battle behind their commanding officer and switched to close-quarter combat by taking out the curved blades. The hidden rain forces were their first victims. The unfortunate men and women tried everything in their arsenal to take down the enemy special forces but couldn't even break the shields protecting them, much less make a dent on their formidable armor. Even as she plunged her sword clean through an Omegakur Chunan's heart, she could see hundreds more furious and determined Awagakur warriors charging towards her vanguard. "Hayat, I need air support," she cried out to her fellow Spartan officer who had achieved crucial aerial superiority for their side by dropping the Nova bomb right in the middle of the enemy camp, which eliminated Awagakur's bomber squadrons alongside a large chunk of their forces and commanding officers. "Acknowledged. Strafingam, now roll over the rest immediately after I am done," replied Hayat swiftly on their communication line. Kitsuki had been leading a counter-charge in person to support the crumbling hidden rain forces when he heard a buzzing noise and looked up to see a platoon-sized airborne Spartans flying straight towards them. Earth-style, rock shelter. Following his lead, many other Iwa shinobi started creating earthen walls around their entire force to shield themselves from the incoming bombing. Hayat saw the majority of the enemy force had quickly taken cover inside a well-protected earthen dome even as Kushina and her men struggled to clear up the enemy vanguard supported by thousands of Zetsus who launched a savage reprisal against the crumbling defenders. "Sir, we can't breach that thicker defense with our explosives," warned one of his commandos. Hayat agreed with that assessment but also realized he had to break the enemy at any cost. Unlike the shinobi from other smaller nations, the shinobi of Awagakur were out for blood after what was done to their village. If allowed to join the melee, they would inflict heavy casualties among his comrades and their side needed every fighter they could save in this battle for the rest of this war. He was codenamed Lion, the only one to receive such honor among his Spartans. He remembered his life before in the First Great Ninja War alongside his squad to allow the others to escape. "I'm not today and neither I will allow anyone else of my friends to." He swore silently, as he looked at his chakra armor. Kushina had also realized the problem their air support were going up against and cursed when dozens of holes opened from the entire earthen wall fortification as the Awagakur shinobi covered within it launched multiple earth bullets which took down several platoons of Zetsus and made her Spartans use their armor's chakra shields desperately. If that wasn't enough, Kitsuki launched his own attack swiftly. Earth-style, erupt. Giant pillars of rocks erupted from the ground, blasting several Zetsus and sent 2 Spartans flying away with brutal force. Kushina flinched even as she fought for her life, knowing her casualties were increasing swiftly and the enemy finally had an officer that was making them fight back competently. Kitsuki his hand on the ground, making his next move even as his disarrayed enemy tried to survive the O launched upon them. A small hill erupted from beneath their position, raising their shelter and creating a series of rocky hills, preventing the enemy from breaching inside their main camp unless they destroyed his position first. His men created several fortified bunkers upon the newly created hill, giving them enough openings to counterattack against any enemy attempt to climb the hill. The Spartans and their Zetsu fighters had completed eliminating the unfortunate hidden rain defenders whose had bought their coalition enough time to fortify their position and regroup their forces under Kitsuki's command. Many Zetsus tried to climb up the hill but were mercilessly struck down by rock bullets launched by Iwa forces or swept away by massive rock boulders or muddy waves that were sent crashing down upon them relentlessly. Kushina and her men took shelter behind a barrier which she created even as she tried to use it to climb the hill, only to be pushed back by the earth beneath her feet, turning to mud courtesy of the Iwa defenders up top. Tough bastards, she hissed respectfully. Kushina, I'll give you an opening. Charge the hill on my signal. She looked up towards the skies to see Hayat flying high in the sky with his platoon not far away from him. Your explosive tags won't destroy much, Hayat. She rebuked him. I know that, but we Spartans have something in our armor which is way more lethal than any explosive tag. Challenged Hayat bravely. Kushina's eyes widened as she sensed the growing buildup of energy inside Hayat's chakra armor. The Biju energy powering it made his shields burn like a glowing sun as Hayat fell towards the hill with terrifying speed, his war cry for his men echoing across the battlefield. First platoon. Charge. Kitsuki wasn't able to warn his forces quickly enough as the Spartan officer crashed upon their hill, unleashing a destructive shockwave that vaporized many of the bunkers nearby to dust and sent hundreds of Awagakure shinobi falling off their makeshift hill like dominoes. Those who were lucky fell on the side of their own base camp, others fell down towards the Spartans and Zetsus waiting on the other side to meet a brutal end. The Awagakure officer himself was sent crashing away and coughed violently as a few of his ribs broke from the fall. As the dust started to settle a little, he was horrified upon witnessing most of the hill was flattened, their bunkers nearly eliminated and massive casualties among his men in the form of wounded or shell shock. Anger surged through him as he saw the lion insignia Spartan that caused this destruction weakly trying to stumble up and regain his bearings. It was a miracle he had survived at all, but his prized armor that gave him this much power was in a mess. A few Awagakure survivors shared Kitsuki's hatred for the Azu commando and rushed towards him. Hayat knew he had broken a few bones and torn many ligaments in the crash. His armor was in a really bad shape and his vision was extremely blurry as he watched several shadows charge towards him. Grabbing his kunai launcher, he tried to fire in the direction only to realize it too had been broken in the crash. Undeterred, he fixed his prized family tanto on the tip of his broken kunai launcher as a makeshift bayonet and got back on his feet, ignoring the chilling pain. Even if he couldn't see properly, he was still a commando and was trained for situations like these. Using what little sensory capability he had, Hayat ducked an attack from the first enemy and jabbed his weapon straight through the enemy's end, making the now identified man gurgle painfully before the tanto was wrenched out and through the heart of another comrade of his that tried to attack the Spartan. He heard a dozen more combatants charging towards him and prepared himself once again until suddenly explosions rocked off all around him alongside the screams of enemy forces. Thundering above all of it were the war cries of his platoon members who fully exploited the opening he had given them by the exposed enemy survivors. "K them all," roared Kushina fiercely, as she too charged up the hill alongside her Spartan forces and several hundred Zetsus. Kitsuki transformed his fists into hardened rocks and jumped towards Kushina even as the two opposing armies got into a brutal close-quarters combat. The difference in technology and skill were made quite clear when Kitsuki's men fell upon the Spartans leading the assault. Many attacked with conventional weapons like swords, spears, shuriken, all of which were easily deflected by the chakra shields or couldn't even make a dent on their anium armor. Their enemy paid for that disadvantage as the Spartans them down like cattle or sent them flying down the other side of the hill in a display of their enhanced superhuman strength. Many others were tackled down to the ground and butchered mercilessly by the cannibalistic Zetsus. Kushina dodged a swift punch from Kitsuki and struck the left side of his face with a solid punch, breaking half of the man's teeth. His remaining fist struck her armor and pushed her back, but even as she was sent reeling back, the Spartan commando fired several kunai from her weapon that struck several points across Kitsuki's torso. He roared defiantly in an act of courage that astonished Kushina, and her eyes widened when she sensed the build-up of chakra within the badly wounded Iwa officer as he started bringing his hammer fists down upon the crumbling hill. Realizing the danger, Kushina alongside many of her Spartans riddled the Iwa officer's body with dozens of kunai from all sides and silenced the brave man forever when a few fell his head, making the giant stumble lifelessly to the ground. The fall of their fearless commander alongside the unending owe of the enemy forces who continued arriving in more numbers broke the resolve of many defenders as they started fleeing back into their base camp by jumping down the hill. A few dozen brave ones stood the ground in an act of astonishing defiance. For Awagakur, for our fallen countrymen. Explosions once again rocked across the makeshift hill as hundreds of Zetsus burned or were torn to shreds. Even an entire squad of Spartans were sent crashing away when many Awagakur shinobi blew themselves up to cause grave damage to their enemies and buy time for the rest of their comrades to retreat to a better position in the base camp. Kushina and her men mopped up the remaining defenders swiftly before they could cause more casualties. She rushed towards Hayat afterwards, who was being treated by some members of his platoon. "You crazy bastard," she exclaimed out of joy and relief. "The enemy are fighting back bravely, Kushina. Destroy them quickly, go," replied Hayat honestly. "What about you?" asked Kushina, concern evident in her worried tone. "I'll live. So will some of our wounded Spartan comrades thanks to our armor. Give me your kunai launcher. I can still fight and provide you support fire from this position." Before Kushina could raise any protest, she witnessed multiple explosions occurring all across the enemy camp. From the eastern flank, she saw Kasumi and her forces charging down the hill after bringing down the entire mountain upon the enemy camp in that direction. From another direction, she saw Naruto and his Spartan squad descending down in a daring assault, taking down enemies swiftly. In the far distance, she witnessed more explosions and carnage as Nagato's group attacked the stragglers in order to rout them and prevent additional enemy forces from reaching their besieged camp. "Go, Ghost!" yelled Hayat fiercely. Her friend and fellow officer's determined order made her steel her resolve once more as she handed him her kunai launcher and switched to her sword. Zetsus dragged a few wounded Spartans to lay them beside Hayat, who in turn ordered his platoon to follow Kushina's lead and support her advance through the enemy camp with aerial support. Kushina seized the initiative and led from the front once again by jumping down the hill as Hayat and his wounded troops started providing support fire from above, even as their vanguard followed after the fiery redhead. Nagato and his squad flew across the open skies, carrying out a carpet bombing over the badly exposed ground enemy forces swiftly and without mercy. A lot of their targets were feudal warriors, civilian levies and supply units who tried to fight back with arrows, spears, lightning and earth-based ninjutsu, but were not swift enough to hit the flying Spartans or weren't able to breach the shields provided by their chakra armor. Ash release, swarming tornado. Nagato unleashed his attack as a large swath of ash was released from his body, which swept across several enemy squads and supply wagons quickly. They were all taken off their feet as a dark tornado of ash took place across the ground, which continued gathering more men and supplies as it raged through the battlefield, much to the horror of the Allied forces. Burn. Without mercy, Nagato ignited the tornado under his control, creating a magnificent explosion that burned hundreds of fighters to the death and created several more explosions, raining lethal debris across the battlefield as the supply wagons caught in the attack also went up in flames. Ash release, 1000 strikes. Finishing the next set of hand seals, Nagato launched a wave of sharp projectiles made of ash which caught fire before they through the of hundreds more enemy troops caught out in the open completely. The Spartans following him continued bombing and launching kunai from their launchers, inflicting more losses. Their Zetsu support units joined them by suddenly emerging from the ground and leaping across isolated pockets of enemy squads in overwhelming numbers. It was then Nagato initiated his next move, for even now the enemy still had massive numbers on their side and would counterattack strongly if granted even a small reprieve or a capable commander to unite them. A few squads of hidden grass and hidden rain ninjas suddenly started attacking the feudal warriors of Awagakur's daimyo, much to the horror of shinobi from the land of Earth. On the other side of the battlefield, it was hidden stone shinobi that were attacking their allies and civilian levies from other nations. Nagato smiled a little when he witnessed Zetsu units camouflaged as allied forces under his orders cause even more chaos across the battlefield by making them attack each other even as the Spartans rained death from the skies. In the absence of their cages and senior officers, the enemy resistance crumbled rapidly. Their distrust of forces from other nations reached its peak as many allied units started attacking each other. The feudal warriors and civilian levies who were forcefully drafted into this war simply threw down their weapons and ran for their lives. A handful smarter ones saw through the deception and continued attacking the Spartans. Nagato made sure to silence those ones with overwhelming power and made them burn to death. In the next few minutes, organized enemy resistance crumbled completely with Nagato's forces mopping up the survivors. Shock and awe. Nagato was satisfied with the way his troops had lived up to the motto of their unit and made the enemy pay a very dear price tonight. But the battle was far from over. Dear, take a squad of Spartans and few thousand Zetsus to maintain chase. Harass and disperse the fleeing enemy in various directions so they don't regroup and launch a counterattack. But don't make them too desperate to survive or they will fight back out of necessity. Give them room to save themselves. I'll gather the rest of forces and attack their base camp. Our comrades need more help there, commanded Nagato. Acknowledged, replied his Spartan comrade with a firm salute, as he started rallying their units to carry out his orders. Nagato and a few other Spartans alongside remaining Zetsu forces then turned towards the enemy base camp currently undergoing a devastating assault from 3 directions. He loaded his kunai launcher before pointing straight at the enemy. Time to close the trap, boys. Let's go. Kasumi Uzumaki descended down from the eastern flank of the enemy base camp alongside her few Zetsu squads after having brought down the mountains directly upon their heads, leading to severe loss among their supply stores and medical units. Unlike her other fellow officers commanding larger assault teams, her force wasn't large enough to aid in a direct assault after their element of surprise was gone, nor did it have any Spartans except Kasumi herself. But their task was probably the most crucial one. She was the finest marksman among the Spartans and had the best performance in search and destroy operations. It was why Naruto had assigned her this responsibility. Projectiles flew from her kunai launcher, striking vital organs of the dazed survivors. She didn't wait to finish the ones who couldn't even move, as the Zetsus were more than happy to finish that task. Undeterred by the carnage around her, she continued checking her corners as she advanced towards where her recon had predicted the enemy's communication unit was before the attack. When she rounded the next checkpoint, she found 3 Awagakur Junin guarding a fortified tent which had survived the mountain crash thanks to the efforts of these shinobi. They looked at her coldly but without any surprise, followed by charging towards her without hesitation. She fired from her kunai launcher, but the skilled ninjas dodged the projectiles or deflected them away with their own kunais, which made her grin a little. A worthy challenge. Discarding her primary weapon, she switched to close quarters combat as the enemy closed in upon her. Wind style, razor waves. One of the Junins was torn to shreds as the Spartan unleashed her ninjutsu, suddenly making his remaining 2 comrades gain some distance quickly lest they meet the same fate. Earth style, earthquake. Kasumi gathered a large amount of chakra from her armor as she maintained her footing even as the ground around her shook violently. In the blink of an eye, she charged forward and transported herself right in the middle of the 2 Shoktiwa Junins. Water style, E. 2 water bullets were launched from her hands which blew through the brains of the enemy Junins and ended their existence without hesitation. As their B collapsed to the ground, Kasumi equipped her kunai launcher and marched towards the tent. As she entered inside, she found a badly wounded Awagakur communications specialist grinning at her defiantly. "You're Spartan," she whispered with a cold laugh. Kasumi froze in her spot when she witnessed the woman had already initiated an astral communication link, a unique technology which her homeland had only shared with their once ally and now turned enemy Konohagakure, who had now shared it with their new allies. It's too late. She tightened her grip on the kunai launcher in her hand when she saw Tobarama Senju looking back at her coldly through the astral link. "Reinforcements are on the way, Spartan," he warned in an icy voice devoid of anything but cold rage. "Bring it on, Hokage," challenged Kasumi bravely, only to receive a smirk from the reinstated Hokage. "It's a shame really, Spartan. You gave your lives once to save his and now he will end you all today." Tobarama's haunting words sent a chill down Kasumi's spine even as the Hokage terminated the connection, and the Awagakur communication specialist laughed at her and received a kunai straight to her head from the Spartan. Contact. Kasumi swirled around and exited the tent to see a massive explosion happening in the direction of the base camp's main entrance as hundreds of Zetsus and a few of her Spartans' comrades including Hayat were sent crashing away. The hill they were upon was swallowed away instantly in a tsunami of trees that started consuming multiple Zetsus mercilessly and made the Spartans run for their lives. As the dust settled from the initial salvo, she witnessed a sight that made her tremble for the first time. For in front of them were the Edo Tensei forms of Hashirama Senju and Izuna Uchiha alongside an entire company of Uchiha and Senju clansmen who were all out for B. Naruto, we have a big problem. She informed her leader immediately. I sensed it, Hawk. I'm tied up with 3 cages right now. Tobirama must have teleported a quick reaction force to aid his desperate allies. Is that the chakra of who I think it is? Asked Naruto worriedly. Yes, whispered Kasumi hesitantly, as the enemy reinforcements joined the battle. Their arrival made the previously crumbling enemy defenders inside the base camp roar in triumph and renewed courage as the Spartans and their Zetsu forces found themselves getting pincered. Can you hold? Asked Naruto. Kasumi looked in horror as hundreds upon hundreds of Zetsus were again torn to shreds courtesy of Hashirama's wood-style attack and Izuna Uchiha activating his own Susanoo even as the other Uchihas and Senjus engaged the Spartans in direct combat. She was a little relieved when a fearless Kushina led a counterattack against the reinforcements and was joined by Nagato as he arrived with additional forces. The female Spartan watched a wounded Hayat fight for survival and it made her remember losing him in the previous war. It was not happening again. She charged towards the front lines and loaded a fresh magazine inside her weapon with cold determination present in her eyes. We will. Every Spartan inside the base camp heard Naruto's fearsome war cry across the entire battlefield which made them fight back bravely against what was probably the toughest battle of their life so far. Bring it on. As the fighting began in all brutality, Naruto made an urgent astral communication call to his own allies now that their enemy had done the same. Soon enough, he found Madara Uchiha looking back at him curiously at the other end which turned into jubilation when the blonde showed him the presence of his arch-rival on the battlefield. I've been waiting for this, Hashirama. Grinned Madara, excitement clearly evident on his face. However that feeling didn't last long when Naruto showed Madara the sight of his own beloved younger brother Izuna Uchiha reincarnated and forced to fight through the power of Edo Tensei. For the first time, Naruto witnessed absolute hatred and frightening rage arrive in Madara's awakened Mangekyo Sharingan. They'll pay for this. 2 days ago, Hashirama was quite confused when at one moment he was at complete bliss until it all went dark. The next time he regained his senses, he was quite taken aback to see Tobirama standing before him in a small room. Is this a dream? He asked out loud, only to see tears visible in his brother's eyes along with some guilt. It's good to see you again, elder brother. Tobirama, what is this? Asked Hashirama hesitantly, as he realized the unnatural feeling binding him to something. It wasn't actively trying to suppress his thoughts but it was lurking just around the corner of his mind. He looked at the state of his body and a sinking feeling arose in his heart as he gained a faint idea of what had happened. When he looked back at his brother in shock, Tobirama couldn't meet his eyes. I failed, elder brother. I couldn't protect our legacy and brought you back because I need your help, confessed Tobirama hesitantly. Edo Tensei, I told you not to finish this abomination. And you used it on me of all people. What were you thinking? Asked Hashirama angrily. Let me explain. As angry as he was, Hashirama knew his brother never did anything without good reason. His decisions usually were always based on facts and not emotions. He wouldn't have resorted to such desperate measures if Konoha or their clan was not in grave danger. So he listened to a tale that would forever change the reality he had always known and believed right until his death years ago. It started from the moment Tobirama was asked to be the second Hokage after his death, to his actions in the continuing war, his capture and subsequent rescue at the hands of the same Spartan captain who had saved Hashirama's life years ago in an exactly similar situation. Talk about history repeating itself again. The boy became a fine shinobi despite all the pain and he underwent because of me. To think, he went on to become such a fine spy in an enemy nation and rescued you as well, praised Hashirama honestly. There is something about him that you don't know, even I didn't until some time back, said Tobirama nervously. What is it? Questioned Hashirama carefully, and was taken aback when he saw pride, Sadness alongside disappointment and regret arrive in Tobirama's eyes all at once. He is my son. Hashirama took a step back and looked at his brother in complete disbelief, so Tobirama explained the truth and how he came to know about it himself during his stay in Kirigakure. He couldn't help but be speechless when his brother told him of how Naruto got another Senju clan head and a Hokage back home, about his love and loss with a fellow Konoha Kunoichi serving in Kirigakure, the alliance he negotiated between Kirigakure and Konoha against the oppressive might of the other three great hidden villages, how Hiruzen and Danzo tricked his nephew with the truth of his wife's death, the civil war in Kiri and his rise to the lure of 4th Mizukage. If that wasn't astonishing enough of a tale, he was amazed and terrified at the same when he heard about the conquests of Naruto the Great. The more he listened to his conquests of Kumogakure and other smaller villages, of how he was a brilliant Kajin military genius who single-handedly started changing the destiny of the war-ridden shinobi world Hashirama created. You must be proud, brother. A shinobi like that is born once in an era, congratulated Hashirama. I was until he ended up joining Madara. What? Hashirama's outcry was everything Tobirama had expected, so he explained everything starting from the circumstances leading to Madara's survival, of how he used Naruto's love for his fallen family and friends as well as his bitterness towards the hidden leaf to fuel his hatred, of how he filled the boy's head with an imaginary tale of a threat from an alien race, the Otsutsuki, and how humanity had to be forcefully united if needed to stand up to them. Reluctantly, Tobirama detailed the tale of the disastrous Kage Summit and how the Fire Daimyo alongside Hiruzen and his supporters and even the Earth Daimyo in Tsuchikage hatched a plan to finish Naruto since they all viewed him as a common threat after his conquests and toppling of feudal dynasties alongside hidden villages. Of how Naruto tried until the very end to convince them of the Otsutsuki threat peacefully until they all turned against him. That was the moment I lost my boy, said Tobirama in despair, as a lone tear slipped from his eye. Hashirama had never seen his usually composed brother looking so heartbroken, and he understood the man's regret when he heard of what Naruto and Madara did in retaliation of such treachery, the destruction of Iwagakure itself leading to so many innocent deaths, the capture of all Jinchuriki by those two including Mito. When he heard of what Madara's plan was, Hashirama could not help but agree with Tobirama as well as the rest of the shinobi world's resistance to it. Naruto threw in with the very kind of people who wants to destroy our dream. I admit, it has a lot of room for improvements and hold Hiruzen, Mu and the Fire and Earth Daimyo responsible for pushing him into this abyss. My student and Mu already paid for that mistake with their lives, the Daimyos will also be held accountable once this war is over. But because of those actions, we have united the entire shinobi world barring Kirigakure and Azu under a common banner of the allied forces. Winning this war will not just help us stop Madara but also perhaps create a respectable unity among nations, explained Tobirama seriously. Now I understand why you need my help, said Hashirama regretfully. Madara is someone that nobody can beat except you. More importantly, Naruto has managed to revive his Spartans and has an army of strange humanoid monsters. Despite everything he has done, I cannot deny my son's prowess in warfare or those of his Spartan comrades. Hell, I could also change the course of this war if I had a company of those special forces fighters under my command. The Spartans probably have more warfare experience of all kinds than anyone in our ranks, they are tactical fighters with their skill and synchronization. Under Naruto's command, they are not an enemy I would like to face if I could help it, explained Tobirama. Madara is the creator of this plan, but it's your son who is the heart as well as the mind of that army. And I agree with you completely on the Spartans, for I haven't seen such a professional and elite shinobi unit in all my years of war, agreed Hashirama, earning a nod from his sibling. We are in a race against time, brother. I need your help in not just rescuing Mito but stopping Madara. Can I count on your support? Asked Tobirama seriously. Hashirama looked at his sibling and fellow Hokage for a long moment. Tobirama, are you prepared to kill your own son for the sake of Konoha, our family and our dream? For this war cannot be won until Naruto falls in battle, you must know that, asked Hashirama sadly. It's a regret I will live with for the rest of my life, elder brother. Nor will I ever be able to forgive myself for not being able to save my son from ending up on this path, but there can be no turning back now. Naruto understands that and I must do the same if we are to win this war, confessed Tobirama miserably, despair evident on his heartbroken face. The second Hokage blinked when he felt the cold hands of his brother wrap himself in a comforting hug, which was something he didn't think he had needed for so long. Only Hashirama could understand and be allowed to do that among everyone except Mito. This is a cruel world, brother. And yet we must fight it till the end for the sake of our village and family, agreed Tobirama reluctantly. Hashirama gently patted him on the back before breaking the hug as Tobirama guided him towards a nearby table where he had a map of the shinobi world. He was quite surprised upon discovering that Madara was holding the Jinchuriki in the area known as Mountain's Graveyard. Although Kirigakure and Azushiyogakure's decision to stay out of this war was along expected lines. Except the Water Nation was sending the 7 ninja swordsmen after their former cage, while the island nation of Azu had only allowed the Spartans and its new cage to take to the battlefield while holding the rest of their army for their homeland's defense. We must rescue the Jinchuriki in more or less a week or the war is lost. I already have a Wagakure and other cages of our alliance heading a large formation from here, while our nation alongside the samurai are marching from here. We outnumber Naruto's forces more than 2 to 1, perhaps even slightly more. Except for the Spartans, Inoue and Madara, the quality of his remaining forces is substandard. But he has chosen a well-defensive terrain in the mountain's graveyard, explained Tobirama seriously. How so? Questioned the first Hokage. In a normal battle, you would usually need twice the number of men a well-fortified enemy has to overrun them. But in mountain warfare, that ratio is 10 to 1 for the enemy is at a superior position, has prepared traps, the rugged terrain will be difficult for the young and inexperienced among our coalition. More importantly, the Spartans are probably the finest mountain warfare specialists I have seen so far apart from a Wagakure shinobi. You would know that too, elder brother. Hashirama nodded for he couldn't help but recall Operation Thunderbolt where those Azu fighters had a daring rescue mission in similar terrain against overwhelming enemy presence and odds. Then we need to hit them from 3 sides. From land, air and sea, proposed Hashirama, earning a nod from his sibling in agreement. Most commanders would be defensive, but Naruto is different. He knows once ours and Iwa's group join together, his defeat will be expedited. So I have a feeling he will hit the Tsuchikage's group with all his might to destroy at least one of our battle groups, said Tobirama, as he pointed at the position of their allies. Then we must stop that, voiced Hashirama. Already on it. Before we parted to rally our respective forces, I gave a scroll with one of my teleportation markings to Onoki. We'll have a quick reaction force made up of some of our finest fighters from the Uchiha and Senju clans ready to answer as soon as they are attacked. I want you to lead that rescue for even Naruto cannot match your power, said Tobirama in detail. Madara may also be there. He is not someone who will sit out of all the action, warned Hashirama, only for Tobirama to shake his head in denial. He is crucial for the success of their plan and the sealing of all the Jinchuriki at the earliest. Naruto will convince him to stay at their hideout. Until he remains there I cannot launch a surprise attack from the sea to outflank them. We need Madara on this battlefield alongside Naruto for that to happen. Our primary objective is rescuing the Jinchuriki and tailed beasts to win this war, replied Tobirama frankly. How will you make him come there if Naruto won't let him? Questioned Hashirama seriously. If your presence isn't enough to entice him, I have also revived his brother Izuna with Edo Tensei. No force on earth can make Madara stay back once he comes to know of Izuna's presence on that battlefield. He'll rush in to save him, said Tobirama cunningly. Hashirama loved his brother dearly, but even he was left speechless by the cunning yet inhuman violation of the soul of his best friend's beloved younger brother. But then again, Tobirama was forced to fight and most probably kill his own son. Which was worse? War is hell, lamented Hashirama, which made Tobirama clench his fist bitterly and nod. True, which is why we cannot give the enemy any quarter for they shall give us none. We must destroy them here once and for all, no matter the cost. Ambush them instead of getting jumped. Are you prepared, elder brother? Questioned Tobirama seriously. I will do what's necessary for Mito and our village's sake, agreed Hashirama reluctantly. This won't be an easy battle, elder brother. The Spartans are a force to be reckoned and Naruto has never been defeated in battle. He is better than me, which is why there can be no mistakes or holding back from us. We must kill the Spartans here or they'll unleash a river of B in the mountain's graveyard, warned Tobirama. Naruto the Great, huh? It's a tragedy I have to face my own nephew in such a way, said Hashirama remorsefully. As am I, replied Tobirama sadly. Present day. As Hashirama launched his attack upon arriving on the battlefield, he couldn't help but remember his brother's pain and knew he had to spare the man from his own son. Their comrades joined him in the attack, so did the Edo Tensei form of Izuna Uchiha currently being controlled by Tobirama completely. Looking at the state of their allies' camp, the former Hokage realized they were hit with brutal force. Shock and awe. It was the motto of the Spartans and they had lived up to it completely. Setting aside his own regret and guilt for taking up arms against those Uzumaki fighters who had once saved his life, Hashirama remembered the face of his wife, brother, countrymen and dream which these warriors were trying to destroy. His response was unleashing his full power which sent the first of the Spartans flying away and hundreds of their Zetsu allies to be torn to shreds. As the Uchiha and Senju fighters charged in, the Spartans rallied once again under Kushina and the newly arrived Nagato's command. The female redhead engaged in a brutal melee with her comrades against the Uchiha and Senju warriors, while Nagato and a squad of Spartans took up positions against Hashirama and Izuna. We meet again, Spartans, said Hashirama sadly. Doesn't surprise me your brother went to such desperate lengths. But then again, Konoha and its leaders have never learned to value honor, their allies or their taunted Nagato. I will ensure you are given a fair sentence if you surrender and hand over the Jinchurikis. It's the least I can do for all of you for saving my life in the past, offered Hashirama sincerely, earning a bittersweet smile from Nagato. It's too late for that and you know it, Hashirama. The first Hokage heavily nodded in response before steeling his resolve once more and looking back at his enemies with an iron will present in his hardened gaze. So be it. They'll pay for this. Naruto frowned upon hearing that angry promise from Madara and saw the man immediately begin preparations to arrive on the chaotic battlefield. He threw several smoke bombs to obscure his position from the three cages currently hunting for him and knew he didn't have more than a few minutes before he was engaged in combat again. His men were in the fight for their lives and the enemy had started turning tables upon them. Stand down. Madara was taken aback by that order as his furious eyes landed upon Naruto who stood his ground and looked back at him coldly. Don't fall into the enemy's trap. Apart from sending a strong force to aid their crumbling allies, this is a clear tactic on Tobirama's part to draw you out in the open to neutralize you or delay our plans at best. It is crucial for you to stay at the base and ensure the tailed beasts are sealed as soon as possible, explained Naruto. That's my brother out there. Being used by the man who him. Do you expect me to let that happen? Yelled Madara furiously. I know that, but don't react to the enemy's move without thought. Turn your own strategy to make them do what we want, advised Naruto honestly. Stop talking in riddles. You're the tactician and I'm the fighter. Do you have a plan to get us out of this mess or not? Your answer will determine my action, warned Madara frankly. We have already dealt a severe blow to the Rock Brigade by inflicting huge losses and scattering their hastily assembled forces in multiple directions. To further weaken this alliance, I need to all cages or at least some of them before pulling back. You don't have that much time. You can't stand against Hashirama and more reinforcements will be there soon, countered Madara. Agreed, so hear out my plan. Madara controlled his anger and listened to the entire strategy which his comrade and leader of their army wanted to carry out. He could not help but see clearly in that moment that Naruto was Tobirama's son, for his thoughts and mental state of mind were quite similar to that of the second Hokage. If this worked, then they could still accomplish their mission to a respectable degree and limit their losses from escalating further. I'll take care of your brother, but at the same time I am also responsible for our men. Trust my judgment, asked Naruto sincerely. Madara still looked hesitant but was quite surprised by his comrade's next words. I plan to mark the Terran Federation's first military victory on this battlefield, no matter the odds. Revealed Naruto confidently with a smile. Terran Federation? Asked Madara curiously. The Allies call us warmongers who only seek destruction. I want to show the world and humanity that we are nothing like that. Terran Federation is an idea of mine which includes all of humanity with all its unity and divisiveness, where each nation large or small will have a voice. One that shall safeguard mankind's future on Earth and beyond, said Naruto hopefully. You just came up with that, didn't you? Asked Madara with a smirk. Naruto grinned sheepishly in return, which reminded Madara of a moment from his own past when he ended up giving a name to his and Hashirama's dream, the Hidden Leaf Village. When he looked at the young commander, he couldn't help but see how he had the dreams that Hashirama once had, as well as the iron will like Madara's own to fulfill them. He also couldn't deny that he actually liked the idea to an extent, as it gave not just their supporters but also the world a clear goal for which this war was being fought. What will you do if we achieve this dream and survive? Asked Madara curiously. Naruto's reply was straightforward and without hesitation. I'll retire. Madara blinked in surprise once again and couldn't help but ask a question that was lingering in his heart. Then who will lead this federation? Asked Madara seriously. You will, Madara. We will need a strong leader like you who is not just powerful, respected and feared, but one who also understands the threat humanity faces, explained Naruto. You don't want to be the leader? Questioned the Uchiha, knowing a similar situation from his past where another Senju wanted him to lead and ended up betraying him by sucking to pressure from Tobirama and others. I've had enough of war and politics for this life. If I survive this, I'd like to live a simple life with my family and children. Might even take up farming, joked Naruto. Madara couldn't help but laugh boisterously as he imagined that scenario, but nodded when he saw Naruto didn't waver. I wish there were more men like you, Naruto, praised Madara. There are no men like me, Madara. Just me, replied Naruto, only guilt and shame visible in his gaze. He saw the blonde gazes harden and realized the cages were closing in on him, so Madara gave him a nod as his consent towards this strategy. More importantly, he decided to act upon the voice within his heart. Then, as leader of the Terran Federation, my first official decree is to make you its first marshal of all its armed forces. Lead us to victory in this war. Naruto's eyes briefly widened in shock, and Madara's next words touched something within his very soul. I want you to be the man you were always destined to be, Naruto. To protect all that we hold dear and our dreams, to fight back against this cruel world and the rotten ways of the shinobi, be the devil they always feared. A firm Spartan salute was the answer he received, along with the battle cry from the blonde. For Earth and humanity. Madara blinked in surprise upon hearing that, and could not help but want it to be the motto of this federation they now wanted to build. As the connection came to an end, Naruto took in a deep breath and quickly contacted his comrades over their shared communication channel. Spartans, tighten the circle. Zetsu's get out of here first, implement an organized retreat, he commanded. We can take them, elder brother, protested Nagato. No, we can't. Not Hashirama, I'm also sending you my personal guard as you need the help. Obey the chain of command, ordered Naruto harshly, as the Spartans protecting him went out towards Nagato and the others to carry out those orders. Very well, relented Nagato, although his tone seemed far from content. Nagato, lead the fight in the inner perimeter against the Rock Brigade forces. I'll hold Hashirama and Izuna in the outer perimeter alongside Konoha's forces, advised Kushina. No way, Ghost. I'm fighting him now. I can handle this, protested Nagato once again. I'm better at delaying tactics with my Fuinjutsu and chakra chains. Your kind of combat skills are more required in the inner perimeter from boxing us in even more than they have now. You also have a mother waiting for you back home. One of her sons is already facing 3 cages. I will at least send her other son back home safely, answered Kushina fiercely. What about you, Kushina? Asked Naruto hesitantly. You know I'm the only one who can do this. I'll retreat alongside you, Minato. I'm with you till the end, or have you forgotten our promise? Questioned Kushina seriously. No, I haven't. Naruto gave his consent to the suggested plan of action, much to Nagato's chagrin and Kushina's elation as the 3 cages appeared before him when the smoke cleared. Don't S on me. Survive and we'll all go home together this time, was his final order. Wouldn't have it any other way, replied Hayate. Let's K some more. Agreed Kasumi. Fine. Let's do this, relented Nagato. Be careful out there, Minato. Don't get that ugly face of yours banged up even more, teased Kushina. I'll get you all back home, no matter the cost. Naruto terminated the connection even as he ignored Kushina's warning to not endanger himself. But it was already too late. Their enemy was prepared to use everything, even the darkest arts of summoning the S to fight their battles, all for the sake of victory. They would not stop at anything, and neither could he. The three cages appeared before him as the smoke vanished and they watched Naruto grab his infamous sword Muramasa in his right hand. There was no hesitance in his hardened gaze, unlike many times before when he wielded this weapon in battle. For there was no morality left to fear, to save humanity from its demons. To save all those he loved and his dream. He allowed himself to become the devil he had always feared. Darkness and something foul crept into his soul as the cursed blade was set free from the chains of its master, who allowed its power to truly merge with his own. Onoki and the other cages stepped back when a cold chill blew past them and they saw Naruto's red eyes glowing even more brightly as if he was the devil incarnate, as dark energy unleashed from the blade swept all across his body and soon enough spread in every direction in a frightening charge to consume. It didn't discriminate and the tendrils of dark energy sunk into everything that came in its path. Living and man and beast. The power flowing through his body was unlike anything he had ever experienced in his entire life, limitless and haunting. He had always known his was no ordinary sword. None of the 7 ninja swordsmen held any weapons that weren't unique. But he had never feared any of those monstrous weapons, unlike his own, whom he had used very little or under strict self-control over himself in the past. For there was something evil inside the blade and it wanted something that would terrify many. Everything. He felt hatred and despair like never before deep within his heart as many happy memories started disappearing from his mind one after another. He felt as if a crushing wrist bearing down upon his soul and choke it until he screamed like never before. "Arise, Black Flash," it whispered. As the pain subsided and his vision cleared once again, he felt a strange calmness, something which was far from anything his enemies felt. Even the twisted Kakazu and calm Hanzo Salamander ran for their lives when they saw everything within 200 feet of the enemy commander get attacked by the monstrous weapon's energy. It consumed living and men, women, children, even animals or wounded summoning creatures of several shinobi. The dark energy twisted them and their screams made even the most battle-hardened shinobi shiver. It also broke the soul of the once proud warrior as well. His honor, already beyond repair due to his past sins, now sank into the deepest pits of hell. Alas, it was the cost of war and the price for protecting one's family. Onoki blanched in horror when hundreds upon hundreds of his own men, now deformed with the twisted energy, joined around Naruto Namikaze. As did many more from the ranks of the other cages beside him. It included many who had even "What kind of sorcery is this?" asked Hanzo Salamander in barely contained terror. "Now I understand why they call it a cursed blade back in Kirigakure. Tobirama raised the to fight our battles, his son has now answered in kind," replied Kakazu warily. A cold and merciless Naruto Namikaze stared at them even as he gestured his newly formed horrors to attack. To the horror of the survivors of the Rock Brigade, their former comrades fell upon them without any hesitation, and for every warrior that fell, a new one was added to the ranks of the forces of the The dark energy swirled around Naruto before he vanished in a dark flash, only to appear directly in front of a stunned Kakazu. Before the minor cage could react, he gasped in pain as Muramasa was plunged deep into his heart. The guttural scream that followed made his surviving cage comrades take even more steps back as the same twisted energy consumed the doomed man. In his final moments, Kakazu understood the true abomination that was the cursed sword, as it consumed everything in his mind, his memories, and even his very soul itself. It had a hunger unlike anything he had ever known and would not rest until he had it all. "So this is what you had kept at bay all along, Naruto." Even as he felt the darkness consumed everything he had, the cage mustered the last of his strength and will to look at his terrified fellow cages. "Run." Kakazu's final whisper was heard by his comrades before he was in half from head to toe as Naruto's gaze turned upon the two cowering cages next. Particle style, atomic barrage. Despite his fear, Onoki led the counterattack, making Naruto raise his left hand towards the approaching beams. Ash release, lance. The former Mizukage unleashed his own dark energy-filled attack that clashed against enemies' attack fiercely. The battlefield was marred in the shadow of light and darkness as the two powers clashed, and for the first time Onoki saw a power able to stand up to his particle style, fueled by support from Muramasa's growing energy. Naruto narrowed his eye when he felt something slimy and invisible wrap around his waist before pulling him off his feet violently. As he was flipped in the air, his red eyes saw the silhouette of a camouflaged salamander abuse. Hanzo stood on top of his nearly invisible battle partner, appearing to be floating in mid-air to the but not to eyes of the former Mizukage, who swiftly threw Muramasa straight towards the beast's head. The Amekage reacted swiftly and unleashed his scythe to intercept the incoming cursed sword, but Muramasa's clean through the battle-hardened yet ordinary metal and lodged itself into the summoned creature. Ibuse's cannibalistic scream hurt something deep inside the Amekage's heart, but he got no respite or chance to save his battle partner of decades as Naruto teleported himself using the Harashin marking on Muramasa and wrenched it clean off the creature's head before leaping straight towards Hanzo with M in his eyes. Realizing the danger, Hanzo resorted to desperate measures and removed the mask he always wore upon his face at the very last moment. Naruto was mere inches from the leader of Omegakure when the man released a cloud of poisonous smoke, and even as he teleported away, he could not save himself from inhaling some of the poison most had from for decades. He coughed violently and fell to one knee as he landed a few feet away. His body was on fire even as Muramasa thirsted for more bee to feed upon. Seeing his chance, Onoki launched a swift attack while Hanzo tried in vain to save his summon while also injecting an antidote to save himself from his own poisonous breath. Something which a struggling Naruto saw and decided to act upon as he rushed once again towards the older blonde, ignoring the pain consuming his body. The Tsuchikage roared in anger when the twisted bee created by Naruto sensed the danger to their creator and launched attacks upon their former cage to buy precious time. He cursed when he saw Naruto charging towards Hanzo once again, but his hands were already tied with the hundreds of enemies in front of him. Hanzo picked up twin swords from many of the nearby and channeled fire-laced chakra into them to give them a fiery glow. He raised them both with all his might in Naruto's first strike, and relieved when the chakra-powered weapons held firm instead of being shattered instantly like his scythe. He could see Naruto was slowly due to his poison, but to his astonishment, the man fought bravely than anyone he had ever faced save Mifune of the samurai. "Do you truly think all this bee is worth this dream of yours?" asked Hanzo, even as he blocked a strike that would his legs off. He sent the younger warrior on the defensive with multiple strikes, thankful for his larger frame and better strength. "It is," answered Naruto in a rasping voice, clearly struggling against death that kept creeping slowly towards him. The blonde launched a horizontal towards the leader of which the man swiftly parried with his twin blades, only to receive a brutal kick to his groin which took the breath out of him. Naruto used that momentary lapse to overpower his enemy and managed to off his left arm completely before Hanzo jumped away to get some distance. To the older man's credit, he didn't scream but was brought down to his knees as the foul energy of Muramasa entered his body through the gaping wound. The pain was all-consuming and his vision was getting blurry, but he still tried to get back on his feet only to see Naruto had teleported away. His eyes widened when he felt pain and looked down to see Muramasa through his C from behind. Looking back, he saw a saddened Naruto glancing at him even as the blonde quickly took one of the healing potions from the leader of Omegakure's pouch quickly and drank it in a blink. Hanzo fell to his knees once again and coughed violently even as Naruto now arrived in front of him. He watched Muramasa now being placed upon his even as he heard a struggling Onoki screaming for him distantly, but too occupied with the twisted creatures that were once their own men. "I truly hope you bring peace to this world," whispered Hanzo, making Naruto's eyes widen in surprise. "I am your enemy," he replied hesitantly. "Our ways are different, but I, too, wish for peace for this world. It's all I ever wanted, but failed to achieve," confessed Hanzo sadly, as he lost his remaining strength and fell flat on his back. To his surprise, Naruto knelt by his side and grasped his only remaining hand gently. "I swear to you that I will bring peace to this world. No matter the cost, for all our people," promised Naruto sincerely. "Our people?" asked Hanzo with a faint smile, earning a nod from the blonde even as a lone tear fell from his eyes. "For humanity." Hanzo smiled weakly, but those words gave him much-needed assurance even as he faded away into the afterlife. Naruto respectfully closed the eyes of the fallen cage and gave him back a sword in hand. "We will meet again someday, Hanzo Salamander. This time as friends," he prayed sincerely, even as he offered a parting salute to the only cage who managed to achieve true respect in his eyes. His hardened gaze turned towards the last remaining enemy cage on the battlefield, and as he charged towards him, a squad of Awagako Anbu Black Ops and Junins got in his way. Naruto raised his cursed sword and the melee began the next moment. Nagato and Kasumi led a counterattack in the inner perimeter with the bulk of the Spartan forces behind them. Together, they held the line even as hundreds upon hundreds of Zetsus started disappearing into the ground to retreat from the battlefield. Nagato, we're being overrun, informed Kasumi. How much longer? He asked frantically, even as he and their men desperately tried to hold the line against the thousands of enemy forces trying to swarm them from all directions. 5 more minutes. If we leave the wounded behind, we can go now, informed an injured Hayate. Out of the question. No wounded Spartan or Zetsu gets left behind, that's an order. Countered Nagato fiercely. There are too many, Nagato. We can't hold them for that long. If our rear falls, then we are F. Warned Kasumi. Trust Ghost. We will hold the line, Kushina won't let us down. Reassured Nagato, even as he countered a hail of Earth-style spears launched at him by Awagako fighters. Kushina grunted in pain when one of the wooden spears created by Hashirama emerged from the ground suddenly and speared through her left arm. She continued firing from her kunai launcher, taking down a dozen more Konoha fighters, much to Hashirama's sorrow. In rage, many more enemy fighters charged towards her to get revenge, going against Hashirama's warnings. She smirked and allowed them to get closer before biting her lips and summoning her special powers. Dozens of chakra chains emerged from her body and speared clean through each of the enemy fighters' vital areas, killing them instantly. Their lifeless bee tumbled all around her, and for the first time she saw anger in Hashirama's eyes. The former Hokage looked across the battlefield and saw most of the men from Konoha's quick reaction force that came with him lay s. Only a handful weary veterans managed to survive so far, but not unscathed. But it had come at a cost, as he watched the lone and badly wounded female Spartan commando panting harshly. He had been held back alongside Izuna upon Tobarama's will, but as Kushina fell to one knee, the order to move forward was issued. Izuna rushed forward first, only to s against a solid red-colored barrier created by the lone Spartan commando. Kushina coughed b when Izuna attacked with his Susanoo, and Hashirama made several wooden spears emerge from the ground beneath her feet, which L clean through her withered armor and lodged deep into her C. But the barrier held. Hashirama used the full might of his power as the chakra of his seeping inside the S-woman tried to overpower her own will and fading strength. And yet she didn't fall. Tears fell from Kushina's eyes as the pain was simply too great. As 4 of Hashirama's wooden clones emerged from the ground around her, even she used her chakra chains once again to strike them down mercilessly. Why go so far? Asked Hashirama sadly, even as Izuna tried to break the barrier with all his might. I abandoned my friends once. I should have s with them that day. Yet I lived, and they s. I got my revenge, saw my homeland and clan once again, spent a brief yet priceless time with the man I loved, and got to fight beside my brothers and sisters once again. I have no regrets, confessed Kushina weakly. You will hear, child. Give up and I will spare your life, urged Hashirama. What are my clan's words, Lord Hashirama? Asked Kushina tiredly. Family, duty, honor. As Hashirama whispered his wife and the Uzumaki clan's motto, he saw a fearsome glint in Kushina Uzumaki's eyes that startled him for a moment. The lone wolf s, but the pack shall survive. The barrier fell and Izuna eyed the S-Spartan with his Susanoo blade, only for Kushina to s his body in return with a 3-pronged kunai before using her chakra chains to sever the blade from the Susanoo's body. The next moment Izuna vanished from the battlefield, much to Hashirama's shock. Did you get him, Lady Inoue? Asked Kushina in a whisper, as her vision started to fade even as she saw Hashirama charging towards her. The second Azukage's voice came on the communication channel, bringing relief to Kanoiki. Naruto's plan worked, Ghost. We teleported Izuna here and Madara has restrained him. He will be able to reverse the Edo Tensei soon. Now get out of there, our attack is already on its way. Warned Inoue Namikaze over the communication link. Kushina bit her lip, erecting a final barrier trapping herself, Hashirama and the remaining Konoha fighters in it, with the first Hokage being encased in an additional barrier all around him. She doubted it would hold him back for long, but Kushina used Earth style to elevate her position into a small hill even as the Konoha forces swarmed towards her. Using her kunai launcher, she started her delaying action. Negative, we need to stop. Hashirama, here. I am surrounded and badly wounded. I won't make it, and I can't hold them off for too long. Lord Azukage, drop the air strike on my position. It will buy our forces time to escape, requested Kushina. Absolutely not. I am pulling you out of there with my Harashin marking on your armor, you are not there. Declined Inoue furiously. If Hashirama reaches our surrounded troops, more Spartans and Zetsus will Naruto is already fighting the other cages, please, my lady, this is the end, begged Kushina, even as she shot two Konoha Chunin trying to charge up the hill. I am diverting reinforcements, we are not leaving you behind. Naruto had been about to engage the last surviving cage fighting against the remaining monstrosities of Muramasa when he received an urgent communication from his mother on the astral channel. She had also connected the remaining Spartan officers on the line, making him realize something had gone wrong. Kushina is surrounded and badly wounded. We need to rescue her right now, ordered Inoue. Our forces are pinned down, mother. There are still many hundred wounded Zetsus to evacuate and we are all pinned from every direction. Elder brother, can you do something? Asked Nagato worriedly. I have Onoki in my sights, but I'll teleport Kushina away, assured Naruto swiftly, and was about to make the hand sign when his childhood friend called out to him. You pull me away from here, and Hashirama, alongside his few Konoha fighters, will overrun my position instantly, and crush the rest of our troops. If you try to come to my rescue, then Onoki will attack them in your absence. A shadow clone of yours will not be enough to stop either cage. It's already too late for me, Minato, whispered Kushina, even as she dissolved into a coughing fit and the sounds of battle near her position intensified over the channel. Screw that. We can handle ourselves, go rescue Kushina, replied Nagato defiantly, earning support from Hayate and Kasumi as well. Don't be stupid, Nagato. The loss of one Spartan is nothing compared to all of us are here. The war will be lost, pleaded Kushina. That's it. I'm coming on the battlefield, declared Inoue. You can't make that long off a jump, not at this distance. Only Naruto can. Even if you manage to do it, you'll be nearly out of strength and become an even greater liability on the battlefield. They will overrun my position in less than 2 minutes. Drop the airstrike on my position or we will all here, begged Kushina. Minato, please. The former Mizukage clenched his fist bitterly when Onoki finished the last of the monstrosities and stood before him defiantly. He knew a shadow clone of his would be quickly finished off by this man if he went to save Kushina, and then the Tsuchikage would wreak havoc upon the trapped Spartan force with his particle style. It is time, my love. Let me go. He had known the cost of war, more than most men ever had. Tears arrived in his eyes as he thought about his oldest childhood friend, his first love, and their solemn promise to each other. He had sworn never to let the past tragedy repeat itself, to get them all back home. Had that been a lie all along? Had he been fooling himself? The warrior and general in him knew what was the right choice, the necessary action to save more lives. But the man inside of that shinobi could not help but remember every moment she had stood by his side. He could hear Nagato and many of his comrades pleading with him even as they fought for their lives as the death trap closed around them. The odds were simply too great against them and it was time to make a choice once again. The future of humanity or the ones he loved. Is our lives more important than our war? Asked Kushina tiredly. Yes, more than humanity's victory. She asked once again. Yes. Inoue alongside every Spartan was stunned by that confession even as Naruto clenched his jaw bitterly. He remembered their be at Razangla, the way he had left them behind to no matter the reason, the guilt he had lived in for nearly a decade, the way his Uzumaki comrades had looked at him, the countless dreams of horror he had lived every night after. All the lives he had taken guilty and innocent, all the sins he had committed in the name of justice or revenge. He had lost everything and everyone except for his Spartan brothers and sisters. He had grown up with them, trained together, fought side by side and even nearly together. When the entire world turned against him, Kushina and these Spartans came to his aid knowing he was doomed, knowing they would defending him. Looking around the carnage he had wreaked and the way even the had been defiled by his own hands. If anyone deserved to then it was him, and not a good friend like Kushina, the woman he had loved. His decision was made. I'll get you all home alive this time, no matter the cost. Even if it's the last thing I do in this world, swore Naruto fiercely. Spartans, touch as many Zetsu as you can. Form a link, we are getting out of here. I'll teleport everyone away first including Kushina from the battlefield, then mother you pull me away with your Harashin for I will have barely any chakra left after such a move. The airstrike shall happen seconds afterwards when the enemy feels they have won. We have done as much damage as we can, I am not losing any more lives and Kushina I will not leave you or anyone else behind. Till the end, remember. Asked Naruto with determination. Why go so far? Why risk yourself like this? Asked Kushina in a tearful voice. Because we're family. You are all important to me, I want you to have long and happy lives in peace and for that I would give anything, confessed Naruto with a faint smile. Inoue heard Kushina give a sob even as she wheezed in pain, but no words could describe the endless pride she felt within her heart for her eldest son. You have become a strong man in my absence, Minato. It was perhaps the first time she saw the true character of her son, always the first step on the battlefield and the last to step off of it. Never hesitating in facing impossible and odds to protect the ones he loved and under his command. No wonder there were shinobi willing to walk through hell for him, knowing he would do the same for them or even more. Naruto dodged several attacks from Onoki and moments later received a confirmation from Nagato that the preparations were done as per his orders. Channeling the remnants of his chakra, Naruto teleported away his surviving forces including Kushina. However, such a drastic action severely drained his dwindled chakra reserves and jolted his entire system. His vision darkened for a moment, which was the golden opening Onoki had been waiting for. The Tsuchikage launched a attack with his particle style directly at his enemy's head. The shields of Naruto's chakra armor absorbed the blunt of the attack but shattered nonetheless. The anium alloy helmet took in the rest of the damage as Naruto barely managed to fall sideways to save himself. He screamed in pain as the shards had clean through his eyes, rendering him blind as he fell on his back. Before Onoki could launch one more fatal attack to end his enemy, Naruto vanished, eliciting a furious roar from the Tsuchikage. His outrage and the survivors of the Rock Brigade alongside Hashirama and his survivors didn't get more than a few moments to rejoice as they all saw a blinding light engulf them. Mountain's graveyard. Inoue Namikaze blinked in surprise when she saw the Spartans and a horde of Zetsu teleported back inside their base. One moment there had been silence in the area and now it was filled with the cries of the wounded, the and the ones trying to save them. She watched Madara in another corner, having reluctantly sealed away the Edo Tensei form of his brother if only temporarily inside a coffin which she had blocked with a binding seal. Her eyes widened when she caught sight of an extremely pale and minced Kushina Uzumaki being administered emergency medical aid. Judging from her wounds, her life was in the hands of the gods and the medics they had. Many other Spartans were wounded including Hayate, but none life-threatening. The chakra armor had proved its worth in gold and perhaps was the only thing that had kept Kushina and her comrades alive so far. The same could not be said for the Zetsus who had no such protection. From the 30,000 that went with Naruto, she spotted less than half had returned. Most of the survivors were wounded in one form or another, many were in agony, and only a few hundred stunned ones remained standing. She quickly teleported her eldest son using the Harashin marking of her own on his body, while sending the scroll holding their last, Nova Bomb, to the battlefield as per Naruto's plan, knowing it would cause more losses to the shattered enemy and sealing their victory. But looking at the state of their own force, it didn't feel like one at all. Her feelings were proven right and many were horrified when a motionless Naruto Namikaze returned covered in a river of B. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.